author of Blue Collar Cash. And I think the best advice that I ever got was the fact that you are in control of your future, nobody else. You know what you like, you know what your favorite colors are, your favorite things are, your favorite goals you want to set, the things you want to have come into your life. You know that better than anybody. So don't listen to anybody else. Go ahead and just do what makes you happy, because only you know that and nobody else. So good luck.
Awesome. So who gave you that advice, Ken? Who told you to find that, or is that just something you found out along the way?
It's from watching people. You have to be aware of your surroundings, and I know you hear that all the time. But when you watch people, you can kind of understand the positive vibes and what makes people move forward and what holds people back and what makes people stuck. So to watch people who are in control of what they really want for themselves, and they're not just going to follow the masses, societal norms, expectations. They're going to kind of blaze their own trail. And it doesn't have to mean you blaze a trail that no one else has done before, but if it's uniquely you, that's what matters.
That's great, man. So with that being uniquely you, I have to tell you, this is not exactly the book that I expected. I'm reading that Blue Collar Cash. Okay, you're gonna make money, just bust your ass, and that's enough. And that's not at all what the book is. I was surprised and little like awesome. That's pretty cool. So let's talk about it because it's a great book for folks. Let's start with one of the early things you talked about, and that's crayon therapy. Now, as a military guy, for me, crayon therapy is Marines eating crayons, but that's not what you're talking about, is it, Ken?
No, it's really not. It's funny you say that about the title, because HarperCollins and I went round and round on several different titles. My original title was The Path, A Ditch Digger's Guide to Comfort, Peace, and Freedom. And they kind of settled it on Blue Collar Cash because they felt like it was really timely. And I understand that. But you're right. The book has a lot more to do with how you look at what your life is all about. And I believe that the beginning of that, the very first step to figuring out what you want your life to look like, is to draw a picture of it. I mean, let's create some type of image or brochure or puzzle, whatever you want to call it, that is to be your life. Draw it as clear as you can, as colorfully, as vividly as you can, with as much detail, down to what kind of pet do you want? What would it be, a dog or a cat? And what color? What would you name it? I mean, get super detailed, and you'll see these things start to come into your life, because your brain has the most awesome power of attracting itself to things that it sees. And so, yeah, that's what crayon therapy is all about. I think back when you were younger, Phil, the last time you held a crayon in your hand was probably when you were 5 years old, and you were probably at your most creative point in your whole life, right? Here, draw a rocket, draw a sunshine, draw a horse. No rules, no stressors, no job, no, whatever, payments, all that. You could just be you. And I think that's why we start with crayons, because we want you to be you and figure out what you want your life to look like.
I like that. I like that. So I've got to ask though, I mean, you work with, your blue collar stuff, right? Blue Collar Cash. What do your employees say when you say, hey, I want you to draw your life? I mean, do you get pushback from that? Or do they say, you know what, man, this is awesome. I've never done this before.
Well, it's funny because the people that have done this have been very successful here. And again, we started with 6 people and now we have 200. So the very first person that ever did this 36 years ago is still here. He's my vice president. So it's amazing because they see the power that he has put to use here. And a couple of them, including him, at the Christmas party every year, they want to blame me for their success. Oh my God, if it weren't for you. And I'm like, no way, man. I had like 2% to do with this, maybe 3. You had the other 97% because you executed on all the things you wanted for yourself. So all I did was put the crayon in your hand and say, let's go. And so, not everybody on the planet wants to share all the stuff they want in their life. I get that, because some things are intimate, some things are health minded, or they're relationship minded. And I understand that. But as long as you're chasing something, that's kind of a prerequisite to work here, is to have your eye on something that you can go after, that you want to come into your life and better it that way.
Wow. So we'll come back to that because I think that's super super important, that folks have that vision. But with that, you also then use this analogy of a 5-gallon bucket that we all have, and I'm like, I've not even considered that. So step us through this 5-gallon bucket, especially the top layer, because the top gallon, because I think that's the one often that we're the most private about, to your point.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite chapters, actually. So, or parts of a chapter. So, we use a lot of 5-gallon buckets in our business here. I mean, we buy old buckets from pickle factories and oil companies and whatever, because we use them to haul construction materials in and out of houses. And so, new buckets to a crew is like a really cool thing. So, you get them new, they love it. So, in the analogy that I used was, okay, if your head is like a 5-gallon bucket, then obviously the first gallon is your basic DNA, those kinds of things that make you work. Your second gallon is the things that are automatic systems like breathing and blood flow and heart pumping and digestion and all those kinds of things. Your third one is perhaps, things that you use to move around this earth, your motor skills, arms, feet, whatever. Your fourth gallon would be the things you learn, the things you input. Okay, like inputting a brand new computer, you download information into your brain, things that you learn. But the fifth gallon, and that's the most important one, because it's the very top gallon. It's the most volatile, because as you fill the 5-gallon bucket, it starts to get a little squirrely near the top. You don't want it to spill over. And yet that's where your emotions are always kind of living. And there's only so much room. We've only got a gallon of that top gallon left. And so you can't put 2 gallons worth of emotions in a 1 gallon in what's left of a 5-gallon bucket, that last final gallon, because it'll just spill over. And you have to really learn how to control your emotions, just like a doorman at a really busy club. So many people can get in, so many people have to get out, and for more to get in. And so because emotions are a choice, you need to really think about which ones am I allowing into my brain on a daily basis versus which ones do I want to keep out? Because, curiosity cannot exist if frustration is in there. Okay. Joy cannot exist if anger is in there. Spontaneity can't exist if, maybe fear is in there. So you really have to be careful which ones you load into your brain. And that's kind of a prerequisite to even building this drawing, because if your mind's not in the right place, you can't get creative and build the life that you want for yourself.
For sure. Wow. I that was such a vivid picture for me when I read that in the book, and you just replayed that, and it just made so much sense. And then you move into talking about faith, which is different in the way that you talk about faith than the way others talk about faith. You talk about faith as believing in something bigger than yourself. Now, how does that play in for your employees, for those of us that are like, okay, I'm going to love my work, but I don't know. I'm not sure that that's going to work for me. I can only do that if I work for myself.
Yeah, I look at it this way. So every one of us is on a path, or that some people like to call it a journey, although that's a lot that word is overused, I think. But if you think about the power of your ability to control what your life looks like, we all have our own nirvana. We all have our own comfort, peace, and freedom, which is what I talk about in Blue Collar Cash. These are the things that we say to ourselves, man, if I could live like that, that would be really cool. And so we seek out to try to find ways to gain these things. And there's lots of characteristics that entrepreneurs have that I think every person has. I mean, here's a crayon and a piece of paper, draw entrepreneur. You really can't, but you can draw the characteristics that an entrepreneur has, and faith is one of those. So I'm a big believer that what you put out to the universe, positive or negative, is probably going to, form your world. Okay. And that's why emotions are so important. And that's why faith is so important, in believing that if you put the right energy out there, good things are going to happen. I mean, you look at it this way, Phil. If you run into someone at the grocery store, if you spend 1 minute talking to a total stranger, that person better be better off for having met you than worse off for having met you for that 1 minute. And it's up to you to make the choice to do that or not. And I just think there's not enough of that in this world.
Yeah, I agree with you. I totally agree. I mean, people don't put their carts back. They don't smile at the cashier. They don't say please or thank you. These simple things to me, at least to me anyway, they seem pretty obvious to folks. So why do you think that it is, Ken, that we don't have enough of this? I mean, is it because of our mindset, or people just, what do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, it's safety versus risk. Okay. I would take my daughter when she was, and she she hated it at first, but then she started liking it later. If I saw let's say I saw an older lady in one of the aisles, I would take my daughter, I would walk down that aisle like we were shopping, and I would say, watch what I'm about to do. And I would walk up to that lady and I would say, hey, I'm trying to make this particular recipe, and I'm not sure if I'm supposed to use this or this. Do you have any experience? I mean, can you help me with that? I'm not sure if it's the can or the this or the fresh. What am I supposed to do? Oh, Sonny, let me tell you. And they would just rip right into this thing, and they would tell you everything about that recipe, and then you'd laugh and they would laugh, and you had made their moment. You made their day, because how do you know that that's not the only conversation she's going to have that day? I mean, you don't, but it's possible. So why not brighten someone's day who she's obviously there shopping by herself at 6 o'clock at night, okay, and 75-year-old lady, 80-year-old lady, why wouldn't you go out of your way to at least try to make 2 minutes of her day good? And Nicole used to like rolls her eyes. Oh my God, Dad, I can't believe you do that. But then after a while, she started getting it. She started to understand this is what we're all coming to do. I mean, there's a lot of misery in this world. Let's take a minute and make somebody happy, right?
Absolutely. Not that hard to do, and
No.
has a great impact. Has a great impact. So with that, you alluded to a little bit before about CFP, the comfort, freedom, and peace. So let's step through that a little bit, because I think we get confused about that, right? So let's start with the C first, comfort. Ken, how do you define comfort, and how does that show up, and how can we achieve more?
Well, the easy definition is, I'm wearing pajamas, I'm sitting on the couch, or I'm in my favorite place, or I'm comfortable in my jeans, or whatever. I mean, my favorite pair, whatever. You got your favorite pillow or your stuffed animal or whatever. That's like a comfort thing. Okay. But what I'm talking about is, am I comfortable with who I am? Okay. We all have the ability to look in the mirror and say, can I build the best version of Ken Rusk that I can possibly build? Okay. How do I see myself? How do others see me? Do I care? To a point, maybe. But what's the best version of Phil that you can build? What's the best version of yourself? And if so, are you willing to go out in this world and say, here I am, this is me, and I'm great with who I am and how I am, and that's where it is. If you hesitate and say, well, no, I'm apprehensive about this or whatever, then get on it, man. Go on it and find a way to make the best version of you, because when you're comfortable with who you are, the world notices and opportunities open up for you. Okay. Because someone goes, wow, that person, they're just good. I mean, they're like good with who they are. I mean, they're just kind of laid back and they're chilled and they're not uptight about anything. They're kind of cool. And there's an attraction to that, and opportunities follow those things. So to me, it's about being comfortable in your own skin as a person, who you are, how you're seen to others, how you treat people, kind of like that whole picture of the best version of you can be.
Yeah. So how do we get that though? How do we get more comfortable with who we are? I mean, there's uh, so much that we could see that maybe is wrong, or that we'd like to improve. How do we get comfortable, Ken?
I think the very first thing, Phil, is you make a list, and I've done this in the book. You make a list of all the emotions that you tend to own, and the ones that you own too much and too often. Okay, you have to start with, what am I filling my head with? Because if I can exclusively throw in the good side of the emotions, man, that's a much better way to live. It's a lot less stressful. It's much more energetic. It's much more fun. It's much more joyful, and you're much more conscious about it. And again, just like meeting the lady in the grocery store, that set of emotions sets off an attraction to you by others. So now, when you're interacting with this world, it's kind of a different thing coming at you, okay? Because people aren't looking at you like, oh, wow, man, this guy's suffering, or she's ailing or sad or frustrated, or, whatever. I think that's the first thing that you do. And the second thing that you do is you definitely have to put yourself on a path. You're either happening to life or life is going to happen to you. Okay. I'd rather happen to life. Right. So if I draw a clear picture of the things that I want to come into my world, then I'm a very focused person now. And I'm a very anticipatory person. I'm anticipating good things coming into my life because I'm seeing them and planning for them. That coupled with the right emotions, you're kind of an unstoppable person at that point.
Absolutely. Wow. Wow. I really, that's excellent advice. And it's one that certainly I'll make sure I take to heart as well, because taking, just accepting that we have that agency to be able to do that for ourselves is such a powerful gift. Just reminding us of that. So thank you for sharing that. Lots of those in the book, which I really like, Ken. Thank you for that. Lots of action. Let's move into the F. The freedom. Freedom. What does that mean to you?
So if you don't mind, I'm going to go with peace first, because they're kind of in order. They kind of live off each other. So once you're comfortable with yourself, that brings about a certain amount of peace. And that peace then can be manifested into other things. Do I have my debt to income ratio under control? Okay. Do I have my bills, my stressors? Do I have all those types of things under control? Am I able to manifest peace on demand? Okay. Hey, Phil, yeah, I can't do what you want me to do because I'm going to take my dog for a walk in the park. Okay. No more peaceful thing in the world than taking your dog for a walk in the park. Okay. Those kinds of things. Can I command peace into my life? Can I manifest it? Can I schedule it? Because sometimes you have to. Sometimes you just have to schedule your peace. So am I able to do those things? Because that sets off the next one, which is, holy cow, my mind is so totally free to roam right now, and to be spontaneous, and to be creative, and to be impulsive, and to remember to love someone, to call someone, to talk to someone in a grocery store, to do those kinds of things. You have this certain sense of freedom, financial freedom, stressor freedom. And I know that it sounds like a nirvana, but believe me, you can do this. It's free. There's no training. You can get there. Comfort, peace, and freedom are kind of like a triangle, each concept relying upon each other for its very existence. And this is just a ditch digger telling you this. I have no science behind this. I invented this. I came up with this, but it seems to work. And the 200 people that I surround myself with seem to agree with that. So yeah, it's kind of a cool little triangle of concepts, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love that in the book. You draw that out, and you make sure that we understand that each of them matters. I think that's very, very powerful. To do these things, though, we need something that starts with an I that's really big, that I think a lot more people need more of, and that's initiative. You talk about Arthur Hills in the book, which is a very interesting story. It's a story that I've not heard before.
Yeah.
Can you share that one with us, please, Ken?
So Arthur Hills was a very famous golf course designer, but the way he got his start was just crazy. He had been working at a landscape place. There was changes in the landscaping company. He had made it successful, but then the people that owned it sold it off, and there was family things going on. And so he decided he wanted to start his own company. So he bought some of the old beat up trucks from the old landscape company, and he was doing landscaping with him and his friends. And in the wintertime, they didn't want to get up at 2 a.m. and go snow plowing. They just didn't want to do that, but they still wanted to make money. So he sat around one day and he said, what if we design golf courses? And they all said, well, we don't know anything about designing golf courses. And he said, well, I get it. But if you look at a golf course, I mean, it's kind of a first hole, second hole, third hole, 18 later, you come back. And so he literally decided, with no experience, to take an ad out in the newspaper. I think the ad was $13, and it said golf course planner for hire. And someone called him and said, I want to plan a golf course. It was a gentleman that I believe he owned a trucking company. And so he picked him up in a helicopter and flew him around, and they were looking at this piece of land that he owned, and he gave him a suitcase full of money and said, when you run out of that, let me know and I'll give you some more. And he literally designed his first golf course with little or no experience. And now I think the number is 264. I can't remember the exact number, golf courses that he's designed all over the world. And the funny part is when I was talking to him about his favorite hole, like, cause I'm a huge golfer and I've golfed on 30 or 40 of his golf courses. And I said, Art, he was 87 or 8 at the time. And I said, hey, Art, what's your favorite golf hole? And he goes, how many kids do you have? And I said, well, I have one. And he goes, okay, that's easy. I have 7. Do you think I could ever tell you what favorite son or daughter of mine I have? And I said, no, I understand that. So a few minutes later, I said, well, that hole, that par 5 right on the lakeshore on Lake Michigan in Bay Harbor up in Charlevoix, that's got to be my favorite golf hole of yours. He goes, that's my favorite hole too. So he ended up, and he goes, oh, you got me. So he ended up admitting that was his favorite golf hole. It's a 500 and some yard par 5 all on the lake. And it's just wonderful. He was an unbelievable man. He used to tutor kids all the way up until the time that he passed away, and very generous guy, and, had a super great career.
Very cool. Wow. That's some initiative to be able to say, oh, right, I'm going to design golf courses, take out an ad and actually make it happen. That's pretty darn cool.
Really cool. Yeah.
Wow.
The funny thing is nobody knows that part of the story. They all think that he just went to some college and got this fancy degree and then did all this golf course design work. And really, it's not how he did it. But you're right. Initiative. And the thing about initiative, and this is the thing I want all your listeners to understand, all of the 9 characteristics that we talk about in Blue Collar Cash, I believe every one of us has those inside of us. I really, really believe that. Initiative, persistence, resilience, faith, courage, humility, generosity, vision, all of those. However, if you don't have a reason for them to come out, they're just going to stay there in your closet behind the shoes you've never worn. Okay. They're just going to live there until you have a reason. Once you have that drawing, man, this is how I want my life to look. If I could live like this would be so cool. Once you have that drawing crystal clear and it's out on the wall where you can see it once or twice a day, all those little characteristics start to come out in you. And then pretty soon, boom, you're going to have the life that you want for yourself.
Wow. So do you still have do you have a new vision for what you want your life to look like, Ken? Have you drawn that up recently?
Yeah. If I could turn the screen right now, you'd see I have a drafting board over here. We're planning a new headquarters for our company. So we're going to do that next year. We've been at that for like 3 years. So that's like a 3-year goal. I'm going to Scotland in 2025 to play golf again. I have another car I want to collect so I can race it around the track. That's in the process. I just had my daughter had a baby girl, and so I'm going to be a grandpa. So I can't wait to show her what the world has to offer, and travel around with my wife. And we have all kinds of. There's always 5 or 6 irons in the fire, and they're either 6 months, 2 years, or 5 years out. And again, it's so fun because when you anticipate life like that, when you anticipate the completion of things, there's just no better way to live.
Fantastic. So what month is the headquarters due to be done? I'll have to come visit.
We're going to start at the end of March. We have some groundwork things we're working on, try to get the right permitting and whatnot. So we're hopefully starting at the end of March, and then it should be done, I would guess, the year after that.
Awesome.
Love to have you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'll come by for sure. Well, with that, I'm going to ask you to pick your favorite kid that you haven't talked about yet in the book. Is there one that, I didn't ask you that you're like, you know what, Phil, I really want to make sure I share this one because there's so much good stuff in Blue Collar Cash, Ken.
Well, I would say this. So my life, I'm very blessed and very grateful. I think about gratitude every single morning as I'm making my protein shake, and I look at my revolving frame with all the pictures of all the things that we've done and the family and all that. Very grateful. And I've been successful, and that's all really cool. I'm a big believer in giving back. So I didn't write the book. I didn't build the course to make money. I mean, some people, I suppose if you're someone who writes, huge books like Lord of the Rings, you're going to make money doing that. But for me, this was my way of giving back. And So I built this course around the book. And I think the most important part about that, Phil, is so many times people read a book and they go, man, that was awesome. And then they set it down and then they go about their day. And then over the next week, they lose 10% of what was in that book each day. Pretty soon they forgot most of what was in it. And it never gets done. It never affects you or changes your who you are. So I built this course. It's $149 and you get a free book with it. And it's 8 sessions that are 45 sessions a piece. You literally can do this in a weekend or a week or two, whatever. But it actually forces you to take what you learned and put it into practice today, like this afternoon, like in an hour from now, not next week, next month, or someday. And what I like about that is so many times, like even the book, like The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, if you didn't take one of those habits and start doing it, why'd you read the book, right? So that's what this is about. It's about the course is called The Path to a Successful Life. And I hope people take it because I donate the money from the courses anyway. So if you help yourself, you're going to probably help somebody else in the process. And, that's something we should all be doing.
Awesome. Awesome. And friends, you can learn more about that at kenrusk.com. That's KenRusk.com. You can check that out. The course is available there. The book is available there. Lots of great stuff. But Ken, I want to close us down today with a conversation about your life clock. You wrote about this in the book. It's such an interesting idea. It's something that a lot of us miss. So tell us about the life clock and your story about that, because I think it's very powerful.
Well, it's I'll do it as quick as I can. But so a while back in the early 90s, our company was just starting to grow. And we were having Christmas parties, and the elaborateness of our Christmas party was based on how good our year was. So this particular year was mediocre at best, and so we kind of had a smaller party around the office. And the staff always wants to buy me something, and it's sweet of them to do that. So we pass champagne around, and we give each other a gift, and here we go. So I got this box, and inside of it was this real slick looking, like, candy apple red silver striped clock. And it's a clock. I'm like, oh, that's nice. They got me a clock. That's cool. And they said, no, you got to use the clock. So as I read it, you plug this into and then it starts from 78 3/4 years, which is the average lifespan. It starts subtracting your life in hours, minutes, and seconds. So here you are watching this stopwatch in reverse, erasing your life away right in front of your very eyes. So you look at this thing and you're like, oh, wow. And then you go to lunch and you come back, you're like, man, hour and a half has gone by. And did I do enough? Did I make something happen? And then pretty soon you get this almost overwhelming paranoia of, am I being effective with all my days and my hours and my minutes, right? So then you start thinking, you know what? I'm not going to waste my time having those conversations because they're not doing me any good. I'm going to spend more time with this person because that's more effective. And you become this really time managed, effective person, and you don't waste these valuable minutes and seconds. I mean, you go away on a weekend, you come back, 72 hours are gone, and you're like, oh my God, what happened to those hours? So pretty soon you become this very effective person. And then you've had enough. Okay. You're like, okay, I got the message. So then at one point I came back after a vacation and, 100 hours were gone or whatever it was. And I was like, holy cow. I said, now I'm done with this thing. It's literally erasing my life. So I took this clock, I smashed it into pieces and threw it in my dumpster. And I got the message. The message is, don't screw around with the time you have. I mean, you have 4,000 weeks on this planet. You have 250 some thousand hours, I think it is. Don't mess around with your time. It's the most valuable asset you will ever have in your life over money and everything else. Spend your time wisely. Choose the people you want to spend it with, and have a really fulfilled life that way.
Love that. I love that. So that's a great way to take us home here, Ken. Don't mess around with the time you have. Take advantage of every second. So great stuff, Ken. I appreciate it. Friends, if you're looking to get more from Ken Rusk, go to kenrusk.com, get a copy of Blue Collar Cash, check out his course, and remember, all you've got is the time you have. Take best advantage of it, and remember that you are in control. Thank you so much today, Ken. It was great.